I was wondering if your research ever brought you across, I guess they've been proven to be fake anthropologists, essentially, Carlos Castaneda and Tobias Schneebaum. And to this day, they still claim these books are nonfiction. And I was wondering if you've ever kind of come across them, and if so, what part do they play in the whole kind of mind games that are going on in culture?
Well, the mind game in culture that really started big time in the 50s, in fact, with the major sci-fi guidance getting released, it was followed up quickly by the New Age movement, especially when the Beatles broke out. That was really what kicked it off. And the whole idea, and this is from Freemasonry itself, by the way, they call it possibility thinking. The guys who introduced possibility thinking were all high Masons. And it was to get you into not seeing the world the way you saw it, but looking at all the possible things you could do to change or get for yourself, or whatever power, in other words. And out of that came a plethora of books to do with from New Age authors that suddenly appeared there, which could take you on almost LSD trips from cover to cover. And that, again, made everything that was fantastic seem possible. And if you really get caught up in it, you would lose your ability to really rationalize for yourself. That was part of it. And it was also to create an illusion that you technically can gain power by techniques and through certain masters, which of course would come forward to the public, which they did through different organizations over the years. And the end product being you can become a god. And we saw that with Shirley MacLaine and others, where she declared she was God, and the big documentary that was done. So it's all part of a dissociation process. You make people dissociated from a reality and caught up in a fantasy world, a fantastic world, where anything can be possible through magic, basically. Now, if you look at what's been done to the public, they're using hard sciences here. They're not using human or other types of magic as far as we can see. Mm-hmm. So it's the dissociative process they want from using pure logic. And it also was meant to destroy what the vestiges of Christianity that told you not to dabble in magic, you see. So,
okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so and they gave you a lot of different authors that came out of the woodwork who were all Masons. And they were being coached. Many of them were not single people, but there were teams of specialists. And you can find the same teams of specialists going back to the days of H.G. Wells. It wasn't just one author who wrote all that stuff. He had a whole team in a building working for him.
I see. Okay, well, now the reason I asked this question is actually because, not to be like super-duper personal here, but when I was about 14, I was a victim of what would be called the grooming process. And part of this grooming process was the guy was like, here, read this Carlos Castaneda book, and I'm 14 years old, and I'm reading this, and as you had outlined there, that process that you described did, in fact, happen to me, because I was under the impression when I was 14 that, like, this was a nonfiction book based on the fact that right on the spine to this day, those books say nonfiction. Mm-hmm. And then as time went on, it was almost like the dose was up, so to speak, where I was then introduced to the Tobias Schneebaum books, which, got into all kinds of stuff. Well, they end up at actual cannibalism. Yeah. And so I'm kind of wondering, I guess I'm sort of wondering what op was I essentially, I guess you could say, victimized by? I mean, have you heard of this exact process before, or?
Yeah, there's no doubt. Even within the OTO, and Crowley promoted this. He actually said it in the Book of the Law that the greatest sacrifice you can give is your own firstborn child. His own firstborn child did die pretty well a year from birth, and Crowley had moved off to a little Italian village where you could buy any cop off and so on, so he had no problem getting away with it. But these characters were trying to encourage all this kind of stuff. So once you break reality and you break the norms and you bring people into what's called magical thinking, you can guide their thought processes into the most bizarre routes. But it's always the ones that you pick for them. And it's written in such a fantastic way, it's almost subliminal. It picks stuff from the deep unconscious and the medulla oblongata area of the brain, where everything resides, and it pulls it to the fore. So really the sleepwalking state takes over you and into your conscious life, and you're hypnotic. You're going through a hypnotic stage. It could last for years. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, now, would you have any idea, like, why this...
Hold on, and we'll do this after the break here. From California, about his own experiences in this whole New Age format, when he followed the Carlos Castaneda and others along the mystical journey, the magical mystery tour, as they called it, in higher levels. So, do you want to continue, Joel?
Yeah, sure. I guess the part that I'm looking back, trying to understand and come to grips with is, it seems obvious that the person did it to me in a very systematic nature, like it was almost a recipe on
there is a recipe. You're right on, yeah.
And, so I guess I'm trying to figure out, was this just one guy's way of getting his jollies, or was it, something that was like even more sinister? Was it, I guess, like, what is the, like, where would someone learn the mechanics of this? Yeah. I mean, I would think I know a lot of people, a psychopathic personality just gets off on, hurting kids. Mm-hmm. But I'm just wondering if there is something, I guess, more to it.
I know that the governments, as I say, governments and agencies, I mean, there are departments, for instance, in Britain of MI5 that literally have a place in the Cotswolds where they train people to go out into the world to create mystery and confusion. These are agents. Crowley was one of them. Mm. And that's what they do, and they're assigned different areas, different places. Sometimes they come out initially with fairly big money. They get big halls, they get followers. Other ones do it quietly, and will teach one-on-one. So you don't know which part of which experiment you're being part of, really. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But, I mean, to you it does sound like it was actually part of an experiment more than just one person doing their thing.
Very, very probably, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I guess just wrapping up, you'd mentioned Crowley, and of course, quite familiar with that. And one of the things that I don't hear people talking about too much was his first book, his Diary of a Drug Fiend.
Yeah.
And I was wondering what you made of. There was a part in there where it almost seemed, he basically explains the entire drug game. I guess the book was written in, 1919 or something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he basically spells it all out. And I was just wondering, what was that all about? I mean, is that just them putting it in your face? Or
they put it in your face, but it's also to intrigue you. Because even when they expose something, it can be so fascinating, you might be tempted to try it. And they wanted to, and Huxley did too, The Doors of Perception, they wanted to get the public into drugs. Some of the present-day leaders that are put out there still do. They want you to go to South America and drink all these elixirs and have your various experiences. It's the same format, because maybe 1 out of every 3 people who do that will actually have an alteration, a physical a permanent one too, of the brain. And they will have loss of affect, etc. And these are all parts of experiments as well. So they can actually buy... Remember, too, that Crowley was part of the whole thing. He told you to go to South America as well and try the drugs down there and have your godly experiences. They've all done the same thing down through the ages, and the present ones are still doing it, in fact.
I see.